Well, that's a wrap on the 2024 Fall Classic. I'm not sure that's how many people would have drawn it up, but the best team undoubtedly walked away the winners. So congratulations to the 2024 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, and welcome to the Late Night Baseball Show, where we talk baseball late into the night and nothing's off the table. Today, we'll give this World Series a proper send-off, discuss an exciting manager hire in Chicago, and get you ready for off-season baseball. Joining me, as always, is my friend and Walker Buehler stan, Parker. Parker, how's it going?
I'm good, man. Welcome to the postseason, or welcome to the off-season, I should say. World Series is over, and yeah, Walker Buehler stan is a good description. I'm all about him, and he was all about being the last man on the mound during the World Series. So I'm doing good. I was really excited. I watched every single bit of the World Series I possibly could. And I had a good time. I had a great time. We were texting back and forth the whole time, so it seems like you had a good time too.
It was a good series. Like I said, probably not how we all thought it was going to go, and we'll spend some time going through all of that here shortly. But like we start each and every show, let's go first to home and talk about some of the biggest stories in baseball over the past week. And Parker, starting at first base, we have one that we kind of chatted about already this week. Bob Costas retires from baseball play-by-play after a remarkable 42 years. That's a big deal.
Yeah, dude. I was telling you via text, but I'll bring it up here. When I was a kid, I didn't have like the MLB TV package. I'd only watch the games that were available on like MLB Network and national TV. So during my high school years, Bob Costas was the weekday matinee MLB Network games during the summer, and he called one of like the two games that they would always have. And so I watched hours and hours and hours of baseball through the lens of Bob Costas. So when he announced his retirement, kind of hit me a little bit in the feels. I'm going to miss him for sure. I remember when Bob Costas and Al Michaels, it was like MLB Network tried to play it up into this huge thing where they like did a game together. That might have been a White Sox game, actually.
Really?
I don't remember. I think it was like White Sox Cubs. I think it was like in Wrigley, White Sox Cubs.
That would make sense.
Yeah. But anyway, Bob Costas will certainly be missed for sure.
Yeah, he certainly has an amazing play-by-play history. I was telling you, I totally respect Bob Costas and all he's done for baseball. I personally have never been into his announcing all that much, but I feel like that's
dry.
I feel like it is dry, and it was probably more suited for the late 80s, 90s, probably not today.
Yeah, it's dry without managing to be classic, I think. Because
that's
like Vince Scully is classic, right? Like you're like, I can listen to Vince Scully call a baseball game like that all day. But I think Bob Costas was, kind of just, old school without managing to be classic.
Going over to second base here, we have the Angels kicking off the trade market with the Braves. The Los Angeles Angels are sending starting pitcher Griffin Canning to Atlanta for Jorge Soler. I mean, this, Parker, happened literally the day after the World Series. The Angels and Braves wasting no time.
The first passing bomb of the offseason happened like 8 hours after the World Series ended. It was awesome. Personally, don't entirely understand the move. Now, this is day one of the offseason, so there's so many different directions the Angels could go with this. But I feel like, oddly enough, the outfield might have been one of their strong points already, and starting pitching one of their weakest. So, I don't know.
I mean, I think Jorge Soler undoubtedly fits into, their DH spot. They've been using Willie Calhoun, who's not traditionally a DH guy, former top prospect who hasn't hit as they thought he would. But, I mean, you kind of said it. They're making the first move, and Angel's gonna Angel. I don't know what the hell they ever are doing. So, I mean, I guess this is fitting. I don't know. They're taking over $26 million of Jorge Soler's contract over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, Mike Trout's probably going to play, between 60 and 70 games next season if he's on the pace that he's been on for the last few years. So, I mean, the worst case, Jorge Soler can play some left field for you.
I hate that that's true. Like, I hate the odds of that are high. That's really shitty.
You just can't shake these knee injuries, man.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, we're sliding into third here, and Blake Snell opts out of his contract with the Giants. So Blake Snell, remember, folks, signed with the Giants over the last offseason late in March when he wasn't finding the deals he wanted as a free agent on the market. So he went ahead and signed a $62 million guarantee with the Giants last offseason, and it came in the form of $15 million in 2024 with a $17 million signing bonus for 2024. He had an option for next year of $30 million. He opts out of that and puts himself back on the market. I could see why he did it. I understand. He had not a great season in the first half. He came back after being out with a couple injuries. He came back in June, posted a 1.23 ERA. I get all that. But I don't know that teams are very confident in his ability to stay healthy.
Let me just start off by saying this is a shocker, right? This is a huge shocker. Nobody saw this coming. No, I think Blake Snell had exactly the Blake Snell season. I think he was very slow in the beginning, and he was an absolute beast in the back half of the season. So, I think honestly, he just demonstrated that he is still the same pitcher that he was a year ago, and I think that a lot of teams could use a guy that. So think about this from the perspective of, let's say, he was rumored to go to the Yankees this past offseason. I doubt that's going to happen this year. I don't think he's got the market that he had. But imagine a starter like that performed like Garrett Cole over the last couple of years and gives you a super, like, I don't know, is able to give you a super dominant postseason and back half of the season, but at the same time, you may have to sacrifice the early half of the season for it. Did we lose you? Did I lose you?
I somehow may have got disconnected, but if you were talking the whole time, that worked perfect because I disappeared and came back.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I was just talking about how we're going to have a bad first half of the season every single time with Blake Snell, and the back half of the season is going to be dominant. It's how he won the Cy Young. It's the season he just had, and to your point, he may not stay healthy, but down the stretch, I don't know if there's down the stretch in August, September, and October. I think that Blake Snell's the guy you want on the mound.
I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. I think where I get a little lost in him going back to free agency is, could he get more than a guaranteed $30 million? Of course, yeah, he could. But if he's thinking he's going out there and assuming what you're saying is true, which I believe it, and you're going to you want $30-35 million a year for that? No, I'm sorry, I'm not paying that.
Personally, I don't think he's out there for $30-35 million right now.
Better not be.
I think he's out there for 5 years, $100 million.
Sure,
maybe.
That I could be convinced into, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm back, and while I'm back, let's hurry up and get to home plate here. Talk about Juan Soto.
Giancarlo Stanton.
Like Giancarlo Stanton, faster than that and with more urgency. But here at home plate, Parker, 11 teams have already reached out to free agent Juan Soto. We know that one of those teams in the Mets is the Mets, and according to John Heyman, 2 of those 11 are what he's considered small market teams. We knew that he was going to be the hottest free agent, but I mean, these teams are wasting no time. And as of Thursday, 11 teams have reached out for Juan Soto.
2 thoughts. Number 1, how is that not 30 teams?
Well, as a representative of Team 30, I can tell you why.
No, you're still just Team 29. The A's don't have a home.
True. I appreciate that. I appreciate that lift. Thank you.
No, I don't know. I don't know how it's not 29 teams. And number 2, wouldn't it be hilarious if the A's have reached out? Like they were the first one. They're like, hey, dude, Sacramento's where it's at.
You know what? That would be just so fucking absurd. But I can tell you that would be like a totally oddball A's thing to do. Mm-hmm. Hey, we need to get people to Sacramento.
They just cut a $750 million contract to Juan Soto and then never pay anybody $1 million ever again.
I'll tell you what, this is going to be really fun to watch. I think at the end of the day, like, I think you threw that 700 million mark out there. I don't think that's unreasonable. That's not the right word. It is absolutely objectively unreasonable, but
objectively unreasonable. But I get what you're saying. It's not it's not. It would not completely floor me if he signed
correct.
a $700 million contract.
In a free agent environment, in a bidding war where 11, 15, 20.
Alex Bregman, like this is his offseason.
It is. And once you get in a bidding war with these teams, inevitably it's going to be the top teams that can even afford to put out that money. Mets, Dodgers, Yankees. I mean, it's betting odds are it's going to be one of those three, but we'll see with 11 teams already reaching out. But Parker, let's start today getting into this World Series. This World Series, we raved about it last week, about it being the most epic World Series, everything baseball ever wanted, two powerhouses, two historic teams. And then, it just kind of happened. It happened to us. We experienced it. I mean, Dodgers win in 5 games, 4-1 in the series. We thought, epic Game 6, epic Game 7. What the hell happened here?
Well, I'm going to steal this from a lot of different places, but I agree with the sentiment that this didn't feel like a gentleman's sweep. I will say at the end there, it did feel none of these games. All right, look, let me put it this way. I watched the 2004 World Series. I watched the 2007 World Series. I watched the 2013 World Series. I watched the 2018 World Series, all of which the Red Sox won. And in every one of those, the Red Sox had a different environment where in 2004 and 2007, they swept. They were dominant. It was insane. It was like, okay, clearly the ALCS was the World Series this year. Then we had the 2013 World Series where it was like, oh, wow, the Cardinals didn't do that great. And in each of these environments, you get accustomed to seeing, a lot of times you get overmatched opponents when it comes to the World Series because of the nature of the two-league system. In this World Series, it simultaneously felt like the Yankees were in over their heads and drowning, but also somehow managing to keep these games close enough to be like, man, I looked at it. There were in 2 different games that the Dodgers won besides Game 5. So games 1 and 3, I think, the Yankees had above an 85% chance of winning at some point in the game. So how close were we to having a 3-2 series going into Game 6, going into a game that would be played as we record right now? So I don't know.
I mean, that you raise an interesting point, but I think where the Yankees, and this is what fascinated me about the whole series, and this didn't come out, I believe, until I think yesterday. Joel Sherman went ahead and wrote an article about what the Dodgers scouting report was on this Yankees team. And the Dodgers scouted this team, the Yankees team, as a team where if you just put the ball in play, their lack of fundamentals, they will defeat themselves. And there was no better example of that than Game 5, top of the 5th, where it all just crumbled. They lost the series in 1 inning. And it's that difference. If they had an 85% chance to win a game at multiple points in this series, the Yankees knew how to ruin that in 3 outs. I mean, remarkably. I mean, that was probably one of the worst 5th innings I've ever seen in a World Series. Worst half innings I've seen in a World Series.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, fundamentals-wise, the team started to feel like what it was. And I hate to be the guy that's always crapping on Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is not a true center fielder. And any major leaguer should be catching the fly ball that he dropped. So it's not that it's not his fault, but it's not because he's not a true center fielder, right? But there's another play in that game where it was Teoscar Hernandez hits a double over his head that a faster center fielder makes that catch, or at least has a play on it. And,
let me add something to this though. If I challenge everybody, please, after you listen to us, go rewatch that dropped Aaron Judge catch in center field. And if anyone's ever played baseball, Parker, you know this. We are always coached to worry about that ball first. Don't be too thinking in the future of, when I get this ball, look at this guy who's over here on first. Let me see what I'm going to do with it. If you look at that video, he looks at Kike Hernandez leading off of first ever so slightly before he catches the ball, took the eye off the ball, and dropped it. That is literally baseball 101. You cannot take your eye off the ball.
Keep your eye on the ball. Aaron Judge, American League MVP. Yeah, actually, now that I bring that up, great transition, me. the fact that both of the MVPs in this World Series kind of just didn't show up at all. Like, I mean,
No.
nobody expected Shohei Ohtani to go, what was it, 2 for 20?
Yeah, so I actually have it up here. So let's do the general postseason because this tells the good story here. So Shohei Ohtani in the postseason was he had 3 homers, 10 RBIs, batted .230. Not horrendous, but not Shohei levels. Whereas Aaron Judge over the whole postseason, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 184 batting average. Yikes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was really disappointed when it came to the showing that we got from these guys. I think we all wanted a fireworks show. I think we all wanted Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton. Like, these guys looked like they were coming into the World Series, and hopefully they got their stuff together, got their shit together, and were able to, like, give us a... We had a bunch of one-run games that were less than 9 runs per team. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think anybody expected pitching dominance to the point that we saw. And it didn't even feel like we were seeing the most overpowering version of these pitchers. Jack Flaherty, he ended the postseason with over 7 ERA. And Garrett Cole he was good, but he wasn't dominant to the point where you're just going to talk to your kids about his postseason run. Like, I don't know. It just felt like, honestly, you know what it feels like? It feels like the World Series could not possibly have lived up to the expectations that I had for the World Series. I think, I don't know. These guys did everything they could to come out and give us what we were looking for, but at the same time, I just don't know if it... I'm not going to go back and look at this World Series and be like, wow, like, that was an all-timer. No, it was a 5-game World Series where the biggest stars didn't really show up.
Yeah, 100%. I like to describe it this way for the Yankees. It's like you have all the right ingredients to dominate, but you just didn't rise to the occasion. You had all the ingredients but the baking soda. You just didn't rise when you needed to, and you just screwed it all up. And so I ask you, Parker, when you look at these two teams, I think it's pretty obvious in the case of the Dodgers, we trust that they'll continue to compete. They can spend $1 billion in 2024 and still spend more in this offseason, which I suspect they will because they're the Dodgers. But where do these teams go from here, particularly the Yankees, who, as Aaron Boone said, are absolutely heartbroken right now?
Yeah, I bet you Aaron Boone's heartbroken. I bet you he gets fired in the next couple weeks.
Ooh.
I mean,
I don't know.
This is harsh. This is definitely a harsh take. But we talked about this before the World Series started, about how Aaron Boone needed this quite a bit.
Yeah.
And when you look back, and the man brought in Nestor Cortez, and he hadn't pitched in a month and a half to face Freddie Freeman, who against lefties, and you know they have these statistics in front of them, against lefties with the bases loaded was like 6 for 20 with 4 grand slams or something like that. Like, it was a pretty cut and dry situation where it didn't seem like Nestor Cortez was the guy to go with. And I'm over here being the biggest armchair manager there possibly could be, because I literally talked about Nestor Cortez being a funky lefty against a lefty before the World Series started. But against Freddie Freeman, I think that you're able to take that and run with it in a different direction. I don't know. I'm not the manager of the New York Yankees. And Aaron Boone, for now, definitely is, and I don't know what I would have done in that situation. But I don't know if many people would put the month and a half layoff guy in to pitch against Freddie Freeman.
That it's a fair point. It's a really fair point. And I mean, for the Yankees, here's the thing with the Yankees is they need to, over this offseason, solidify that starting rotation. Yeah. They need also to fill out that back end of their lineup. 7 through 9 needs some work. And
they don't exist.
Absolutely. And I think that's the differentiator when you look at this Dodgers team. I mean, when you have Max Muncy, playoff legend Kike Hernandez, and even Will Smith, 7 through 9, I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Will Smith, one of the better hitting catchers in the MLB. Kike Hernandez in October, genuinely, I don't know why, is one of the best players in baseball. Like, it's incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and Max Muncy clutches up in the postseason. He may have his ups and downs during the regular season, but Muncy, he delivers in the postseason. At least he's solid. I don't know, man. I think that the Yankees have Garrett Cole and Rodon, and I think Heel is going to be a big part of that rotation moving forward. But do you go sign a Blake Snell? Like, I don't know. Do you go sign a Jack Flaherty? Do you go? I don't know.
Yeah, that's hard. I think they're going to find themselves in a precarious situation in the next couple. I think they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch this offseason. I know I'll be watching closely because for the first time ever, Steinbrenner doesn't seem like he's opening the pocketbook as much as he did 5-10 years ago. And I think that's going to dictate what happens this winter. Even as close as they came to the World Series, I just don't see their propensity to spend like the Yankees of old anymore.
I mean, think about it. The last time the Yankees signed the big name free agent outside of Aaron Judge, but I think everybody kind of expected Aaron Judge to go back to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Which is easy to say in hindsight. Maybe I'm wrong. But I definitely did. The last time before him, the Yankees signed the big name free agent was Garrett Cole. And what's that been, 5 years?
Wow. Yeah. Well, they may have signed Aaron Judge, but they didn't sign Arson Judge.
Nope, Arson Judge is still at large.
Oh man! Before we move off of the World Series conversation, I would be remiss if I didn't mention World Series MVP Freddie Freeman.
Oh my God!
A whole other level. I mean, there's been in the history of the World Series, his performance will go down as one of the best in World Series history.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason he's not the first name on this list, but here we go. Just his postseason run in general is so funny. Because if you pull up his playoff numbers on Baseball Reference, they don't look great because the guy did not have a great postseason until
Correct.
The World Series, where he had one of the best World Series of all time. For those of you who aren't aware, going into Game 5, Freddie Freeman was carrying a streak of 6 consecutive World Series games in which he's hit a home run. Over the course of the postseason, he had a .250 batting average. He hit 4 home runs, all in the first 4 games of the World Series. 13 RBI. He hit a walk-off grand slam in Game 1 to win the game in Los Angeles. He was the one who hit the 2-run RBI single, to finally tie the game against the Yankees. And then Mookie Betts was able to hit the go-ahead sacrifice fly in Game 5. All in all, Frederick Freeman, 4 home runs in the World Series, a boatload of RBIs, playing hurt, just... Turns out he was playing with broken rib cartilage the entire time, not just the messed up ankle.
Unreal.
Yeah. I mean, you just can't. Best teeth in baseball.
Objectively, the best teeth.
Just can't say enough about the guy. One of the prettiest swings of baseball. Freddie Freeman, World Series MVP, couldn't possibly deserve it any more than he does. It's fun to watch, man. He's incredible.
I will say, I on X or Twitter or whatever the hell you want to call it these days, which, by the way, I'm thinking about getting off of because it's just a cesspool of nonsense. Anyway, that is a story for another time. But I see this meme going around there where it's the older brother from Home Alone, and it's like, who could have thought little Freddie Freeman would win World Series MVP? You got it. Then he kind of does look like the older brother from Home Alone.
Yeah,
quite hilarious. But it was a World Series, regardless, well-deserved Dodgers. They absolutely played their asses off. It was fun to see them in pure kind of Dodger form.
Yeah, and highlight of the series for me, Walker Buehler getting the ball in the 9th of Game 5 and hitting the gladiator, are you not entertained pose after getting the last out.
Incredible.
Solid baseball moment. Just love it.
Love it. Well, we are closing the book on the World Series, and we are closing the book on the 2024 season. And don't worry, we will come back to it and kind of look back to 2024 at some point this offseason, I'm sure. But let's talk about what is coming up this offseason. And as we talked about last week, as we get into the offseason, teams are already starting to prepare for their 2025 rosters. And that includes manager positions. And the White Sox made a huge managerial hire, hiring Will Venable, who is the associate manager under Bruce Bochy in Texas with the Rangers. I mean, Parker, you know how I feel about it. I want to get your thoughts. What was your first impression when you heard that the White Sox were able to land Will Venable?
Wow, I mean, congratulations. That's the guy, right? That was the guy.
Yeah.
White Sox fans could not possibly have wanted somebody better. This was the guy. Go get your man that you can sign to. I don't know how long his contract is. Hopefully he sticks around for a while, sees this thing through. But this is, if it works out, if he does become the manager everybody thinks he is, this is a guy of the future. He could very well be, I don't know, Alex Cora for the Red Sox, but White Sox version. He could be one of those guys that you have synonymous with your team if he sticks around and he's as good as people think he is.
Yeah, very well could be. And I think what's made this hire extremely exciting for me as a White Sox fan is, number one, the type of his pedigree and his background. And I think, you hear this a lot about whether it's general managers or managers. You have, especially in front offices, you have guys that are really smart, Yale, Princeton, Harvard guys, or you have guys who actually played in baseball, played in the major leagues. I mean, think about a guy like Theo Epstein, who is a Yale guy who has an incredible background. But then you have a guy like Chris Young, president of baseball ops for the Rangers, who has played in the game, but also a very bright guy. So Will Venable is the best of both worlds, right? He's a
Absolutely.
Princeton guy. He played the sport. He worked under the Theo Epsteins, the Jed Hoyers, Alex Cora, Joe Madden, Joe Madden, and then Bruce Bochy. He is someone that if you were to draw up all the experiences you would want your manager to have, it's pretty freaking close to Will Venable, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you happen to know how many years he signed for?
I do not, other than it was a multi-year deal. So generally,
okay.
I'm glad you asked that.
Because,
exactly, right. Generally, it's 3 years is the standard, but it brings me to kind of my next point here. And this is something that gets talked about a lot when teams hire managers, especially teams that are in the position the White Sox are in, where they're going through a rebuild. It's still going to be a couple years. There's a long laundry list that Chris Getz and company have to handle in the front office. But the question is a natural one. Is this a bridge hire like you typically see in rebuilding teams? And I think this is one of the first hires in a long time in baseball where it's not. There's no way. I think they hired Will Venable to see this rebuild through, help Chris Getz, partner with him, build the foundation, and have this guy be part of the fabric by the time they're ready to compete, much like a guy like Brandon Hyde in Baltimore, who went through the pain and the growing pains and has been with this team as they continue to be successful here in recent years.
Yeah, this definitely feels like Chris Getz's guy. This is his manager. We're going to see what they can do together. I don't know, man. Congratulations. Let me tell you, you got to feel on top of the world right now. I mean,
I do mainly because this is the happiest I've been about the White Sox in approximately 2 years. So this is very exciting.
So I can kind of relate to that. I'm a Broncos fan as it pertains to football. And we had just a flurry of head coaches and quarterbacks over the last several years, and then signed Sean Payton to be our head coach last year. And there was a lot of how we felt, and finally we got a guy who's going to just right the ship and make sure this is a watchable team. So, yeah, no, I'm excited for you, man. This is going to be a good time.
It will be. It's something we're gonna track certainly here on the show. See how Will Venable adjusts in the first year as a White Sox manager. We did talk about the other manager opening last week. The Miami Marlins still have that opening. As of right now, we have only heard of one name attached to that opening, and that is McCullough. And the McCullough is the first base coach for the Dodgers, so he just wrapped up that World Series. Other than that, I don't know what the hell the Marlins are doing.
I hear Ron Renicke's phone's ringing off the hook, dude.
Oh, my. If that... I can't. The Marlins are going to Marlin. I don't know what the hell they're ever doing. I don't know what Peter Bendix.
He might manage the team himself.
He may manage the team himself. I don't know the guy personally. I've never met him. Obviously, I don't mean to be this way. But Peter Bendix just seems like the dork upstairs who it just doesn't really get it. Like, he's looking at numbers, he's making decisions off a calculator, off an Excel sheet on the computer, and the pure baseball traditionalist in me fucking hates that. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and even me, just being a big numbers guy, like, you got to have feel for the game, too, on top of it, man. Like, I don't know. It's hopefully the Marlins, for the sake of their fans, figure it out. I really hope that they figure it out.
Well, this the last thing I'll say on it, because now I've gone down this rabbit hole. But Will Venable said it really nicely in his press conference yesterday. He said this. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, he's basically said he likes to make decisions using analytics and data as the foundation for objectivity. Let that be the foundation, but then above that, take into account things like how guys are feeling. Are they good with their mechanics? What do they have going on? Are they confident in their swing right now? Like, these things that you cannot ignore and just have a playbook for a whole game and say, if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens. It's a full picture situation that I just so happy to hear him say that, because I feared that we've been getting away from that, and that's not good baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, not at all. I agree. Full stop. I don't know, man. I think I'm so excited already. I texted you the other day as soon as the World Series ended that, it was like 100. I think it's 103 days now until pitchers and catchers report, which is hilarious that I get so restless during the offseason, but it's just 3 months. Like,
it's the longest 3 months of our lives.
It's an eternity.
It is.
It takes so long. I'm already so excited for opening day next season. And I know these poor players need a break, but oh my goodness, I want baseball.
Well, I do too. Let's talk about that journey, because it sure as hell is a long one. And so let's get you teed up for the offseason, folks, and what to expect over the next 3 months. So first off, day after the World Series, October 31st, happy Halloween. Free agency begins for all eligible players. Now, what happens with free agency, folks, is teams have 5 days to negotiate exclusively with their free agents. So that means that come Monday, November 4th, the free agents for all teams are eligible to sign with any team. Options or opt-outs must be decided at that point, as well as any qualifying offers need to be offered to players at that time. So that takes us up to Monday, and next week then is a really big week, Parker. We're going to be talking about it next week. November 4th through 7th is the GM meetings in San Antonio. Personally, I always get excited for the GM meetings.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happens here as it pertains, like even just the brickwork being laid for trades, Rule 5 acquisitions, stuff like that. And we'll get into the Rule 5 draft and stuff like that later, but the GM meetings in San Antonio, in a lot of ways, set the tone for the entire offseason. Like, you'll watch players' prices skyrocket just because of how many times their name is brought up in the GM meetings and stuff like that. So this is it's an exciting time, and there's a lot of stuff that happens during the offseason in baseball that is really it's like heroin for the really in-depth nerdy baseball fan. And it's probably super boring for a lot of other fans. But if you're listening to a baseball podcast during the offseason, you're probably the kind of fan that's going to be hyped up by the GM meeting. So if you've never paid attention to them before, go on Twitter, follow Jeff Passan, and turn on notifications for his tweets.
That is the most perfect recommendation for the GM meetings. And this is where, Parker, when we go through the rest of November, this is where I start to get really antsy, because this is the slowest part, in my opinion. And when we start getting in the second and third week of November, because after the GM meetings, the only thing that we're really looking for are things like trades and potential free agent signings. November 19th is a deadline for players to accept or decline the qualifying offers they may have received. And it's also a deadline for the Rule 5 draft to protect your players. Parker.
Well, I was going to so I'm going to be completely honest here, and this is like one of my blind spots as a baseball fan. I understand that the qualifying offer is something that needs to be given to players before they hit free agency.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. And if the player is not offered the qualifying offer, then when they hit free agency, a team that signs them then has to give up a compensation draft pick just to sign the player, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct if their team offered them the qualifying offer.
Yes. So if they turn down the qualifying offer and go hit free agency, they then become not a liability, that's the wrong word, but they're more they cost more than the dollar amount on their contract, because then the team also loses a draft pick as it pertains to signing them. The qualifying offer typically it's for 1 year though, right? It's like the average salary for the position for a year.
That is correct. So this qualifying offer is 1 year, it's slightly over $20 million.
Which for a lot of players might be like the team does not have to offer them the qualifying offer.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's like before you go on free agency, we're going to offer you the qualifying offer just to make it that much harder for someone else to ever sign you. Okay, cool. Makes sense to me. I'm glad you explained that to me, because it's always like, oh yeah, he's got the QO attached to him. They definitely won't sign him. I have no idea what's going on here.
No, this is where, and this is why we're going to be with you off season, folks. We're going to be helping you through this, because like any other off season for any sport, sometimes this stuff just gets way too complicated than it needs to be. And one of those things,
with baseball, because we have like 7 collective bargaining agreements that have stacked on top of each other at this point, and it's like no idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah, I definitely lose track. Let's not foreshadow what's going to be happening in 2026. I'm already freaking out about it.
Scary. Every single time it happens, I panic, man.
I know. It's an existential crisis is what it is.
Oh, my God.
So November 19th, players have to accept or decline that qualifying offer, and then there's the opportunity to protect players from the Rule 5 draft, which essentially means you need to fill out your 40-man roster with folks you don't want to be drafted by other teams.
Yeah, so the 40-man roster is your safety net. If you want to keep a player in your system, then you need them on your 40-man. Those people are not draftable. So it's a lot of times it's like your best AA players, maybe a single A player, and then a lot of your AAA Major League roster, obviously, and stuff like that. A lot of times with the 40-man or with the Rule 5 draft, people don't realize that you cannot just be drafted the year after you are drafted. You can't just be Rule 5 drafted the year after you're drafted from the Major League draft. It's like it's like a 2-year. You have to spend like 2 years in the minor leagues, not make it to the big leagues, and then once you're Rule 5 drafted, you have to play in the big leagues the next season, or else you have to be given back to the team you are Rule 5 drafted from. It's supposed to give players who are maybe stuck in a position where there's like 3 really good guys in their position for the team that happen to acquire them, and gives them the opportunity to play in the big league somewhere else.
Yeah, and I love the whole concept. I think it's great, and we have a history of players sticking with teams for years after being a Rule 5 draft. There's some really great stories embedded in there.
Yeah, I mean, look at Nathan Eovaldi, one of my favorite Red Sox pitchers of all time, was a Rule 5 draft guy. He came from the Yankees. He went from the Yankees to the Red Sox, pitched for the Red Sox for years, had that great World Series run against the Dodgers, and now pitches for the Rangers.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also think of I believe Liam Hendricks was at one point a Rule 5 draft pick too.
Rule 5 guy. Garrett Whitlock also on the Red Sox is a Rule 5 guy. Definitely. I'm trying to think. I think Nestor was a Rule 5 guy. Nestor Cortez. But yeah, no, a lot of you'd be surprised how many great baseball players there are currently playing in the major leagues who are Rule 5 draft guys.
Do you want to know, because I just looked it up because it's very interesting. I looked up just right now historic Rule 5 draftees. Did you know that in 1954, the first pick in the Rule 5 draft selected by the Pirates from the Brooklyn Dodgers was Mr. Roberto Clemente?
No way.
Isn't that crazy?
Who the hell's playing right field for the Dodgers back there? What year did you say?
1954.
I mean, those were the World Series Dodgers, so.
That's interesting. I did not know that. We learned something new. Wow, how about that?
That's crazy.
We're going through November, and once we get past that, we're going to November 22nd, and that's at what they call a non-tender deadline, specifically for players who are arbitration and pre-arb eligible players. So what that means, folks, is if you have a player that has played less than essentially 6 seasons in Major League Baseball, every year they're eligible for arbitration.
Every year after their rookie contract.
3 years.
I think it's
Right.
3 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah. After 3 years of service. So let me explain this better. So years 1 through 3, the team can go ahead and just renew your contract. Whereas after 3 years, there's the ability to offer player arbitration. The team selects what they think you're worth. The player selects what they think they're worth. They go to arbitration in January and February and decide, based on a third party, what that number should be. So you either, by this date, the team either has to renew the player's contract that are less than 3 years, are given off an arbitration number, and if they don't, they go into the free agent pool. So this could be something where if teams are giving up on, like, say, a guy they've had for 3 years, a former first-round pick that's just not hitting it, not performing, they drop them, lottery ticket for another team. This is where you gotta get some additions to free agency that people may not expect.
Yeah, 100%. And just to shine a little bit of light on arbitration and kind of the free agency picture in general, like, for instance, this is the first year that Juan Soto has not hit arbitration. Like, this, he is going into free agency. He's arbitrated his salary every other year besides this. And to be very clear, he's made over $35 million the last couple of years because he's that good, and that's how lucrative these deals in arbitration can get. So that's good for the players. Famously, though, arbitration is one of the worst parts of a Major League Baseball career. You turn from a player that is an asset for your team, and you're hearing how great you're doing every single day from your teammates, from your skipper, from the front office, to you walk into a courtroom with a moderator, and now your team is trying to prove to the court how bad of a baseball player you are and how little money you're actually worth. So famously, one of the most divisive and super, super stressful times for baseball players. So hopefully that not a lot of relationships are burned to the ground during this. Inevitably, there always are some.
Yeah.
Corbin Burns is a really good example in recent years of just arbitration completely ruining his relationship with the team that drafted him and brought him up. So, yeah, arbitration might just be a word. It's a word you'll hear quite a bit in the offseason and around player contracts and stuff like that. And just know it is an absolute slog and a slugfest between players and teams.
It sure is. And after we get through the slog of November, we finally get to probably the best part of the whole offseason.
Oh, yeah.
And that is December 8th through 11th. The winter meetings are in Dallas this year. Parker, I want to refer folks back to that notification that you set up for Jeff Passan, because that shit's going to get hot in December.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so much so that it's going to be mostly him retweeting other people, because there's so much going on in the winter meetings. It's literally baseball Christmas, guys. Like, people are traded, people are signed, players show up, all the general managers are there. They get into boardrooms, present pitches to each other for trades and deals they can make, and it turns into one of the most enlightening and also, like, crunch times of the baseball offseason. For instance, Xander Bogaerts signed a 12-year deal at the age of over 30 for the Padres in the last day of the winter meetings, either last year or the year before. I can't really remember. I stopped counting time after Xander Bogaerts left the Red Sox. But honestly, the winter meetings, it turns into a pretty crazy time that's super fun to pay attention to.
It is. It's a really fun 3 or 4 days, and it includes two other things that happened in the offseason. December 10th, the second to last day of the winter meetings, there's the draft lottery that will determine the draft order for the following June's MLB draft. And then the last day of the winter meetings is that Rule 5 draft that we just mentioned. So there are some actual things that need to be done during the winter meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the draft lottery, by the way. Just throwing that out there. That's a relatively new addition to baseball if you're a new fan.
Oh, yeah.
Draft lottery.
Yeah, I hate that my team lost 121 games and can't pick lower than 10th, but whatever. It
is what it is.
Pisses me off. Like, they picked the worst time to lose that. I digress. Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so then we get through December. Everyone has a Merry Christmas, and then baseball comes back really quickly after that, because we have next year, pitchers and catchers are reporting February 12th. We have full squad reports February 17th. Spring training will officially begin February 20th, and then, much like last year, we have an earlier start official earlier start to the season because the Dodgers, your defending World Series champions, are playing the Cubs to open the regular season in Tokyo from March 18th to 19th, 2-game series before the domestic opening day, March 27th. That will be a really fun series, Parker.
How cool is it going to be to see Shohei Ohtani starting? Probably Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Honestly, think about it. It doesn't matter who starts game one because probably games 1 and 2 are going to be Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. How fun is that going to be in Tokyo?
And also, if I'm the Cubs, I'm starting game 1 Shoto Imanaga. And then
that's amazing. Who knows where Roki's going because he might get posted this season.
Yeah, he may. That's a good point. Can you imagine if, not to say the Cubs would sign Roki. I don't want to
even breathe it into existence. I don't. He's going to end up in Boston, man. That's where he's going.
No way. Oh, you think so, huh? No way in hell.
Masataka Yoshida the last few years, certainly not.
Oh, God. You know what? He is someone. I'm not even going to get into it. We will have a Roki episode. We do not know what's going to happen with him yet. Long story short,
if he gets
folks,
posted, we will do a full Roki episode.
100%. We will table that for now. If you don't know what we're talking about, go ahead and please look up Roki Sasaki from the Japanese league. All right. So
I do want to point out real quick that in between December 11th, the end of the winter meetings, and February 12th, pitchers and catchers report, we, especially in recent years, Juan Soto might not sign till June, guys. Honestly, free agency is super end-loaded in baseball. So just lock in, hang tight. We're going to see a lot of smaller names dealt. We're going to see guys like Jorge Soler to the Angels. We're going to see stuff like that before we see the big Juan Soto bomb, the Roki signing. Now, the cool thing about Japanese posting, again, to bring that up, if Roki Sasaki is posted, his 45-day timer starts ticking. If they do not sign him by the end of that 45 days, he does not come to the major league. So that will happen in that window. But like I said, basically ever since the Bryce Harper free agency, baseball free agency takes forever. We do not have a frenzy period like MLB or like the NFL and the NBA. It is going to be a slow burn. So hopefully you're in for a long off season.
Right, you are, and I hate that you're right because, quite frankly, I can't freaking stand it. I hate it. I hate how long it takes, and I would love to see them do an NBA style free agency. I mean, this is ridiculous, and I hate it mainly because I'm getting on my soapbox now. I hate it mainly because one goddamn guy runs the whole offseason, and it's Mr. Scott Boras, and it drives me nuts.
No, I completely agree. Scott Boras runs the entire fucking offseason. I don't like that Scott Boras basically controls baseball with an iron fist and that he gets everything he wants because he holds players out. He has his own little version of Driveline that he sticks his players in whenever they're free agents. But I also have to take into account that not having a free agency period like the NFL and NBA is definitely better for the players.
It is 100%
more money. They end up playing when they're ready to play and playing for teams that they would rather play for.
It is. We are a player-friendly show here, people. 100%.
Absolutely.
Oh, man. So I have to say, to wrap it up here today, Parker, I got to ask you, what are you most looking forward to this offseason?
I think the easy answer is to say Juan Soto. I think everybody's kind of excited to see where he ends up. I personally am leaning Mets, but my most anticipated part of this offseason is definitely seeing if Roki Sasaki gets posted and where he ends up. I mean, this is the third, fourth time I brought it up in the last 5 minutes. He's people talked about Yoshinobu Yamamoto like he was the next Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
Roki Sasaki actually might be. Roki Sasaki is young. His arm's made of rubber. And he is absolutely incredible. And I would like to see. We haven't seen somebody come over to the major leagues from Japan so young that they could actually developmentally improve. I think once they get here, Roki Sasaki definitely could benefit from some of the best coaching in the world. And I hope he does come over. He will be cheap. he will be pretty cheap because he's being posted so early in his career. But I want to see whether or not it happens.
Well, it will be very exciting. I'm looking forward to it because he's so cheap. Maybe my White Sox have a chance. We'll see.
Maybe. I think he's probably drawn to the Dodgers. If I had to guess.
Something tells me that in 2027 or 2028, the Dodgers will have an all-Japanese pitching rotation. Let's be honest.
Maybe. Well, Walker Buehler's not Japanese, so maybe he'll get citizenship. That's my guy, dude. That's my guy.
Yeah, you're not letting him go at all.
No.
At all. Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, we're going to be here covering the offseason, talking about it for the next several months, so hang tight with us here on the Late Night Baseball Show. But thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We appreciate you hanging out with us late to talk baseball deep into the night here on the Late Night Baseball Show. If you're like us, and I think you are, you're bummed that the baseball season's over. And I have a handy 3-step solution for you. Number 1, subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Number 2, leave a review, make them good. And number 3, tell a friend or 2 or 3 about the fun we're having here on the Late Night Baseball Show. Catch you next week, folks.